Hey there guys, it's Joey, and this is going to be the first video in the mini-series about protection. So originally I was just going to jump into things like some different ways of spiritual protection, and I actually had a question this morning about why it was necessary, and I thought, well, given the vastness of protection, maybe it is good to have a video to prelude all of the protection magic and things like that, and discuss why spiritual protection is necessary, in my opinion. Okay, so one sort of question that gets posed, and I've seen it posed around, and I've had it posed to me, is the idea that if you're on a spiritual path, then why do you need spiritual protection? Because somehow the idea of being on a spiritual path negates negativity, that you are searching for enlightenment, so there's no space for anything negative because that somehow goes against spiritual enlightenment, I guess. I don't fully understand that argument. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because of a multitude of factors. The first thing that I feel about that argument is that we are human beings for a reason. You know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that is as it's meant to be. We are meant to be experiencing and learning lessons in life in a human capacity to do so, and to deny the human capacity for negative emotions, negative reactions, etc. is sort of denying half of what I would consider to be human nature. That's not to excuse bad behaviour on anybody's part, not at all, because for me it's being on a spiritual path is about recognising those behaviours in yourself and where they come from and working through them, which is a very difficult process of self-analysis and self-betterment. And you incorporate all of the tools available to you to improve yourself and to become the best person that you can be. Now, that's those on a spiritual path incorporating witchcraft, and there are those out there that see witchcraft plainly as a tool, a craft, and don't have any spiritual, or not really any spiritual side to it, which is something I'm going to address in a bit. And what I want to get at with us having this human reactions, human experience, is that we all have the negative, if you like, negative emotions. Although when you start to pick them down, you can see the positives in all emotions, and you can take something positive from any emotion. It's perfectly natural and correct in a lot of experiences to feel anger. And the idea of righteous anger changes societies, changes discrimination, fights injustices. The problem with certain emotions is that they become poisonous when we hold on to them, when we focus on nothing but them, and they become poison, they become inner poison. And protection work can be used to guard us against our own reactions, if you like, our own negative traits. We can set up layers of protection not only for that comes from the outside world, which we're going to talk about as well, but from an inward perspective. You know, we can set up protection to help us in our journey about learning where our negative reactions come from. And this is something I've been doing on my path, learning what to allow, what not to allow, where my reactions come from, and how to to analyse and then sort of reconsider my reactions and what I allow to cause a reaction. But without the reaction in the first place, and you don't start to delve into the reasons being why you reacted to them. So to say that people would never have negative reactions to things, never feel bad, inverted commas, bad emotions, is kind of missing the point for me, because in order for me to fully embrace my spiritual path of self-enlightenment, self-betterment, however you want to see it, I have to acknowledge that I am flawed and human, and that I make mistakes, and that I have all of the range of emotions, because to have no range of emotions is to be a psychopath. And it's okay to be upset and angry and things, just it's not okay to poison yourself with those things, because those reactions are human. Everybody, or most of everybody, has those reactions. So protection can be about protecting yourself from stopping yourself becoming absorbed into those reactions. And one of the things that I fully understand and cope with is depression. And then there are other related, I don't really want to call it illness, but you know, I guess it's the way it is addressed, where people suffer from anxiety, and people suffer from stress, and people suffer from depression, and then some people suffer from anger management and all the rest of it. And then on top of all the mundane things you can and should be doing in order to heal yourself or manage your condition, depending on what it is we're actually talking about, you can do spiritual work, which would include meditation and perhaps crystal healing and perhaps spell work for self-protection from inner issues. And that's not to block it out, absolutely not. We're not talking about protection to stop feeling, we're talking about protection to not allow those things to overwhelm us, not allow them to poison us, to allow us to gain an understanding on every level about those emotions or about those illnesses, and gain a spiritual, emotional and mental understanding to better equip us to deal with those emotions or illnesses. So that's the first thing that I think protection is absolutely necessary for. The other thing is outer influences that we are going to need spiritual protection from. Okay. So there are day-to-day encounters with people who aren't necessarily magical practitioners or spiritual practitioners and have no interest in it whatsoever. They're just, you know, going about their business, but they might be a very negative person. They might wish you ill. They might have tendencies, but they don't actually practice. So my mother was a psychic vampire. She was terrible at draining everybody anywhere near her, and as a result I practiced a lot of spiritual protection, to the point where I am quite almost reflexive in some of it now. Now, people, it's not about blaming people, because sometimes people drain energy, they don't know they're doing it necessarily. So then the onus becomes on you to be able to protect your energy, because you do know what you're doing. So, you know, if there are people out there that are sending negative energy and, you know, on the negative manifestations of what they are conjuring up, particularly if they're in a very negative place, in a very angry place, they have no interest in not being angry anymore, they're poisoned by their own anger or sadness or whatever, and they're in a destructive loop. That can influence people, particularly those in the path who are highly empathic or sensitive to other people's energies and things of that nature. And if you are empathic or sensitive to other people's feelings, emotions, you know, you can pick up on people's emotions and things, and that can put you in a bad mood, then that's definitely something you would need spiritual protection from. Then there are practitioners or spiritual people in the spiritual path who are either negative on purpose. I don't know, but I mean, there are maybe people who are inexperienced and are putting out negative vibrations and don't realise that they're doing it so much, perhaps. But there are people who use magical spell work or energy work or healing work to harm other people. And there will be a million videos on this subject. I guarantee the videos with probably with the most views are about curse work. And then there are a whole range of debates from every angle about whether or not people curse people. And whether or not you believe in it, and you believe in sort of the threefold law, or if you believe in putting what you put out comes back to you, and it's not actually, a lot of people term it karma, and I was reading about how the origins of karma in the Eastern understanding of it have been warped to what we understand it today. It's not exactly the same, and so I'm not going to use that term. But there are those out there who use magic to harm other people. Shades of grey, basically. Witchcraft comes in many shades of grey, and it basically comes in as many shades of grey as people do. And there are going to be people on one far extreme, there are going to be people on the other far extreme, but there are people casting negative magic, you know, magic to harm people. And there's a long discussion about all of the shades of grey. And I mean, that's a video series into itself, but my point is that you've got to be aware that people cast spells to influence, harm other people. There are some people that have no qualms about it, and I've seen people saying it, I know that people have done it, and I think you have to just be aware that even if you never cast a negative spell against a person in your life, you have to be aware that there are people that would. And on that note, I mean, people can create negative entities, thought forms can be created, and there's a whole line of other sort of non-people related negative entities that could latch on and drain spiritual practitioners of their energies. People have talked about encounters with spirits that they've had with negative energies and they can't quite pin down, negative thought forms, and a whole host of other things besides. I honestly feel that spiritual protection is a good practice to get into the habit of, and rather than saying that spiritual people are less likely to need it, they're more likely to need it. And I was talking to two practitioners today in the shop over, they run a holistic place, and I was talking to them about it and having a discussion, and they were talking about a different situation with people who needed protection and this, that and the other, and I was talking to them about that. And we're just talking about the fact that if you are more spiritually aware, if you're more open to these energies, that you know, you're opening yourself up to them on a regular basis, you're using crystals to heal and work with your energies, working with chakras, so you're opening and closing, you're becoming more aware of energy work, you're becoming more aware of the interconnectedness of spirituality, of energies, of how things are interconnected, how spell work works, how energy work works, how things like Reiki work, how herbalism works, and tuning into the spirits of trees and whatever, then you're more aware of the energies around you, and you are opening yourself up psychically. And if you are opening yourself up, then you are at higher risk of spiritual or psychic attack. So that's not... Again, there is a risk of becoming overly paranoid with spiritual protection, and I think, like all things, there's no point in seeing someone round every corner casting a spell against you. That's not what this video is about. It's not saying, you know, that there's someone around every corner and they're evil and they're casting against you every minute of the day. That's not what this is about. It's being aware of spiritual energies. It can be residual, stuck in a place. It can be negative energies generated by a whole host of people moving through a space, and I don't know, half of them are having a really shoddy time, and you know, it manifests as this sort of yuck. You know, I don't know if this makes any sense, but certain places, in my experience, particularly if they've had very negative people in them, can almost harbour those energies. And when you walk into them, you feel icky, you feel drained, you might get headaches, you might feel sick, you might feel woozy. It just depends how open to these energies you are. My partner is quite sensitive, although he doesn't practice in any sense or form. So when we used to go to my mother's, he would come out with a headache, feeling like his skin was crawling and feeling sick, the same way I did. And that's because of the pure negativity in that place. So I absolutely feel that spiritual energy and witchy protection is absolutely necessary. I think I've covered all the angles that I wanted to about, you know, you can generate your own negativity quite easily. Other people can generate negativity without meaning to, or just through their sort of negative thought process or their negative actions. And words have a lot of power. You know, having an argument with someone can create a negative energy just through the spoken word. Because when you're on a spiritual path, you're very aware of the power of words. Once released, you can't take them back. That's it, it's done. It's putting an intention out into the universe for all intensive purposes. You know, it's a vibration that you're putting out there into the world. And arguing with people who might say things in the heat of the moment, that the power of putting an angry word out like that, it can be quite scary, because it becomes like a sort of an energy avalanche, I guess. And having protection against those energies is a good idea when you're, when you're involved in a spiritual path. And then there is, I just, you know, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of this, that and the other about people casting. There are people that will cast negative magic, and that's the main point that I really just wanted to hammer home and make aware of, because that exists. You know, you need to have a level of protection in balance, because you can't let it rule your life either. You just have to get into good witchy habits, basically, good witchy habits of cleansing and purifying and grounding and protection. So that's it for this video. Many blessings.